Hey guys, so we're going to jump into the April 2024 edition of my top 10 units in Dragon Ball Legends list here. In case you guys haven't watched one of these lists before, every character is considered at max potential, 14 stars, best equips, best teams, max title boost, etc, etc, etc. Then this is a top 10 ranking that consists of my opinion based off of my own experience playing the game, and every character is going to be ranked based on how they perform in the current meta environment, not based on their individual, peak potential, stuff like that, just how they actually perform in the current meta. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the list. We're going to start with number 10, make our way up through number 1. I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker in this one because I don't want this to drag out forever, and I'm sure most of you guys already know how most of these units work at this point. Number 10, I have LF Purple Perfect Cell. I think number 10 and number 9 are kind of similar here, but I think there's a few characters you could, potentially fill in this role or this spot on the list for. I think like Blue 17 has been pretty common that I've ran into recently. I'm not really too big of a fan of Blue 17 because he doesn't have a good Zenkai buffer, and that at this point is definitely needed for him. But I think Purple Cell is pretty decent still. I think just on like a pure androids build, he can still perform very well. And we only really have like one dominant yellow character, I would say, which is UI Goku. We'll talk about Super Baby 2 later in this video, but it's hard for me to really rank Super Baby 2 as being like a massive issue for purple characters right now, just because I hardly ever fight him. It seems like nobody uses him, which is a bit, it's a bit unfortunate, but I understand. Cell, I mean, you guys know how this works. He's a good character, AoE green card, has the death AoE, has really good unique gauge, the extra vanish, doesn't have type neutrality, I don't think, anywhere in his kit. He has a pretty good array of mechanics. Has been aging pretty well at this point. This guy, I think he came out, when was it? It was in July, I think. End of July, something like that. So, I mean, we're talking like 9 months ago or something, and he's still able to perform pretty well. So overall, I think Cell is in a pretty decent spot here. Of course, if we get caught with UI Goku, could be in a bit of a pinch, but aside from that, he performs pretty well in the current meta environment. He actually does pretty well against, I think, the 3 best units in the game, which obviously you guys don't need me to say, but Ultra Golden Frieza, Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and Super 17. Obviously, against Gohan in particular, he could be a good asset, but yeah, not much else to say here. It's just a really solid, good character all around. Just got to be super careful when you're fighting against UI Goku, but other than that, pretty good unit. So, Purple LF Cell number 10, let's move on to number 9. Number 9, we're going to have Purple LF Zenkai Full Power Jiren here. Again, I think I made the similar comment in my last video that I did of my top 10 units, but the only reason why I'm having Jiren higher on the list than Cell is because they're pretty similar. They're both purple characters. They're both powerful opponent. They're kind of both similar, where Jiren and Cell can both be kind of blast or strike. You can build them either way. The reason why I would be more comfortable running Jiren right now is just because of the fact that he does have more defensive mechanics, and he just has more bulk in general, which could allow him to fare better against UI Goku. He's less susceptible to just getting sniped and crushed by UI Goku, like if you get caught with him or something. Obviously, he has endurance, depending on if the enemy uses a Rising Rush or not, which is a big thing that he has that Cell doesn't have, but they're pretty similar. I think Cell's a little bit more powerful offensively, which is not a surprise. Cell has a unique gauge, which will allow him to get his Vanish back, but these characters are pretty similar. They're both purple units. I feel like if you wanted to swap the positions of Cell and Jiren, I wouldn't be that opposed to it, but for me, the way that I like to play the game by playstyle, I'd be more comfortable running Jiren right now in the current meta, as opposed to Cell, but it's very, very close. So you guys know how Jiren works, AoE green, all that stuff. So Jiren number 9, let's move on to number 8. All right, so number 8, we have LF Super Baby 2, and I don't think I did a video with this guy releasing. I don't think I've done a top 10 video since this guy's come out, so I'll spend a little bit of extra time talking about this guy because we just haven't spoken about him before. So number 8, I think, is a pretty good spot for him. I mean, if you wanted to put him above the character we're going to have at number 7, I could see it. But I'm pretty comfortable with having him at number 8 here. He's in a bit of a strange spot. He released at a very bad time. Like, this guy came out when like red was the best color, probably. His red and green were both very good. Since this guy's release, we've gotten Ultra Golden Frieza, and you would think that this guy would have gained a lot of extra value from Golden Frieza coming out. He probably did gain a little bit of value, but I don't really think like this guy's as big of a threat to Golden Frieza as we would have thought he would have been. Even though he does have type advantage over Frieza, I just feel like I did my God rank grind this season with Frieza on like a GT / powerful opponent build, and I think I maybe fought one Super Baby 2 the entire time. This is a very star dependent character, which is not going to really factor into my evaluation because I'm just gonna assume he's 14 stars because that's what I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Every character that we're evaluating is going to be at 14 stars. I think the biggest problem for this character is how prevalent Super 17 is, which I guess has some positive and negatives for this character as well, because this guy actually, I think his best role right now is actually being used alongside Super 17 as opposed to being used against him, obviously. This guy can serve as a pretty good tool to generate a bunch of cards in your hand. So the way I like to use him with Super 17, I think I did this in my God rank grind prior to the season, in the last season, was I would use him to pressure the opponent into switching characters, at which point you gain a lot of extra cards and Baby does a lot of extra damage. And then, you use a few cards, you go into Super 17, and you have a lot more ammo with Super 17 to continue the combo, draw it out longer, and maybe even switch back into Baby before your cards are used up, and then Baby can continue the combo again, and you would have really long combos with that setup. The main issue, though, is, of course, fighting against Super 17, which, again, is very, very common. This guy gets absolutely demolished by Super 17. He actually has an interesting mechanic here, which I'll briefly mention. He does get defensive neutral. But the problem with this is it's depending upon you having defeated battle members. If he had just 10 counts of type neutral defensively upon switch-in, even when you didn't have a dead battle member, this guy would be a real problem, right? I mean, I don't think Super 17 would be that deterred by this character, even if he did have defensive neutral when just baseline, when he entered the battlefield for even just 5 counts. Because all this guy would need to do is enter the battlefield, get his unique gauge built up, and then at that point he could have his defensive neutral removed. But I don't think Super 17 would have really cared about that. But when this guy's yellow, type disadvantage versus Super 17, it's tough, right? I would say 80% of the fights you have in high ranked PvP are against an opponent that's using Super 17. It's just really tough to find a spot where this guy is going to be mega effective. But he can still be good. I think when you get his gauge filled up, and if you're not fighting, a Super 17 juiced up setup, maybe the opponent's using a team more centered around Gohan or even Frieza, a team that doesn't use Super 17, which definitely exists, but very common to find Super 17. This guy can perform really well, even against Beast. This guy doesn't really care about it. He's pretty good defensively, but it's just Super 17 that makes it really tough for this guy right now. So we'll see maybe down the line when Super 17 starts to not be as common in high ranked PvP, which I assume is going to happen when we move into the anniversary. Maybe we're going to get some really high powered purple characters potentially, because purple's been neglected for a really long time up until Frieza came out. But we'll see. Whenever we've gotten these characters that have had defensive style unique gauges where they need to take hits to build their unique gauge up, pretty much every one of those characters has not aged the greatest besides Ultra Gogeta Blue. But we'll see. I think Baby actually does have some pretty good mechanics. The vanish removal, I would say, is kind of okay, but the fact that he has very easy ways of resetting the gauge with the blue card, he has a lock-in ultimate, which can be really good. He gets his vanish back as well. The green card counter can be really effective. This is a character, by the way, that has a similar field presence mechanic as Orange Piccolo does, transformed Orange Piccolo, which he has a, I guess, melee counter green card, and he has blast armor on his strike cards. So if you have a green card in your hand and a strike card in your hand with Baby, you can kind of just sit in mid-range and the opponent really can't do a lot to you, right? If the opponent goes for a blast, you can go for strike armor or blast armor on your strike card. If the opponent goes for a tackle or a strike card, you can go for your green card. So there's very, very limited options the opponent can do when they're staring Baby down in mid-range. So that's a really strong aspect of this character. But overall, we'll kind of see where the meta takes us for this character, but I do kind of feel okay having him at number 8. Again, if you want to put him up one more at number 7, I could see it. I think a lot of people are not really going to have a good grasp as to how good this character is. And I think a lot of people would even say this character doesn't make the top 10, which I definitely would disagree with. It's just, you really have to use him at 14 stars against other, well, I don't even know if it's just 14 stars. It's just, you have to use him against other people on an even playing field, right? That's the reason why I judge everything at 14 stars, is because that's what I'm used to using. And it's the most, I feel it's the most fair way to judge characters, right? If every character's at 14 stars, they're all going to be on an even playing field. So, even if you want to judge Baby at 3 stars, then, make sure you're judging him against like a 3-star opponent, so they're on the same level. When this Baby is on the same level as the opponent is in terms of stars and teams and equipment, Zenkai buffs, etc., he feels very good to me. He does. So I feel fine with him being at number 8. You can move him up 1, I think, but yeah, Super Baby 2 at number 8. Let's move on to number 7. Number 7, we have Transforming Beast Gohan. I think this character at this point has sort of fallen from like the main character you want to focus on for your team to sort of now being relegated to more of a backseat to the main character on their team. This guy is no longer like the go-to point unit. His damage certainly is not that great anymore. I mean, his blue card can do a lot of damage still, right? If you hit the opponent with the transform, drop combo green card into blue card, sort of like, One Punch Man mechanic thing, it can do a lot of damage still. Type neutral, all that stuff. But at this point, it's not as good as it was. And then after you get that off, I mean, just this character's damage outside of that one blue card, I mean, it's not the best. It really isn't. But the good thing about this character is he's not just a one-trick pony with his blue card damage. He also is doing a bunch of other stuff, like he's supporting the team with the blast damage for whatever reason. I don't even know why they even gave him that, but it really helps him, I think, age pretty well here. So the blast damage buff to the whole team is pretty nice. He has buff removal when the enemy uses like blue cards, ultimate, stuff like that. So if you're pairing this guy up alongside characters that have like endurance and stuff like that, then the opponent using a Rising Rush or an ultimate can actually kill them. Works actually pretty well with Ultra Gohan, who's a pretty common character to use alongside Beast here. Something else to mention is he does have a blast cover change, which is pretty valuable in this meta because it, again, pairs up well with, like, for example, Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's strike counter gauge. The opponent wants to continue to use blast cards against Gohan. Well, you can switch into the Beast Gohan here, and he can counter that. Obviously, this is pre-transform. Besides that, of course, he also has the Vanish removal on his transformation, and he has the buff removal, which I already talked about, but buff removal and type neutrality when he transforms and stuff like that. So he's pretty good still. I wouldn't really say he is what he was on release. It's a very different environment right now, but we'll see. We'll see how he continues to age. I don't think there are a lot of people that are still talking about this guy like he's top 5 or even top 3 in the game. I just don't. He does not have that kind of impact anymore from what I've seen. I play this game a lot, and I don't think I've fought against a Beast Gohan in the past like 100 matches that have been frightening to me. I guess one other good thing about this guy too, though, is the fact that he has very, very high like one-man army potential. And what I mean by that is he has a lot of mechanics like type neutrality. He has a lot of ways to restore Vanish, which makes it very hard to start a combo on him in combination with things like Blast Armor and his green card destroying your green card and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see how he continues to age. I feel pretty comfortable with this guy being at 7. And like I mentioned in the section about Super Baby 2, I think you could probably even just swap this guy with Super Baby 2 if you wanted to. To me, they kind of feel like they have a similar role on their teams, right? They're kind of just like the secondary character, whereas, they're sort of being in the fight to synergize and work well with the main character that you're using, like either Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan or Super 17 or whoever it is. So, Transforming Beast Gohan number 7. Let's move on to number 6. All right, number 6, we have Goku and Bardock. I really didn't know where to put this guy on the list. Maybe you could put him down a little bit, but I think they're still good enough. I think they are better than Beast. I think they are better than Super Baby 2, so I felt comfortable putting them at number 6. I feel like they overall have a bigger impact on the fight than those other characters do, and I think they're able to do more than the other characters here. That we've talked about so far. So I think I'm okay putting them at number 6. I think this is is this a big fall off from the prior list? Did they jump back a few spots? I think I might have had them at even 3 on the last list. I think these guys have definitely been hurt quite a bit by the last 2 recent big Ultra releases, Gohan and then Frieza. It's funny because this is supposed to be the character that like is gonna kill Frieza, and they just get obliterated by Frieza. But Gohan hurts this character a lot as well. Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan is a very common unit. I think in terms of commonality of character that I fight, I think the most common unit that I fight is Super 17. I think the second most is Gohan, and I think Frieza is the third most. But that's not that unexpected, because as we get closer to Anniversary, I think people are going to be more reluctant to summon because they're saving for the Anniversary, which makes sense. But Goku and Bardock, I mean, you guys know how this character works. AoE green card. I actually feel like we're heading... Power creep is so bad in this game that it actually feels like we're almost heading into a scenario where you are severely at a disadvantage if your team doesn't have an AoE green card. Like, it just feels like every team is just better with an AoE green card, because it means you have to keep track and be wary of things in such a different way, right? You really want to be wary of how you counter enemy tackles if the opponent has an AoE green card. You want to make sure that you're not like really strike canceling as often, because they can catch you on the sidestep after a strike cancel with their AoE green card. You want to make sure you're not like quick attacking into a strike card, because you just get countered by the AoE green. Like, it makes such a big difference if you're fighting against a team that has an AoE green card available to it. Indestructible is really powerful still. Still have no character that can straight up nullify Indestructible. It doesn't really get affected by healing reduction either, because they remove all those abnormal conditions and debuffs and stuff when they get their Indestructible activated. They still have the potential to do a lot of combos, but the main reason why I feel like this character has dropped off a bit is just because of, again, those two Ultra characters that have come out recently. They really do make this character a little bit harder to use. I would say especially Gohan, right? This character starts out as Goku, who's a blue character. And this character, one of the main aspects that they brought to the table and why they were so good for so long is because it was super, super easy to extend combos for a really long time with this unit. Had an AoE green card that gave them cover nullification, which you could then chain into their cover nullification mechanic, which was to land 2 strike cards or blast cards, or a mixture of both. Whenever they switched in, then you would get cover null, and you could like sort of chain that into the switched characters, same mechanic, right? So now that we have like Gohan in the game, we have UI Goku, still pretty big issue in the game. We have, a lot of these characters that are being released that have ways to stop character combos without, having to worry too much about cover nullification. Cover nullification has become a lot less important, I think, recently, which hurts a character like this that has very easy access to cover nullification. But overall, I still think they're a pretty valuable unit. I think this is one of those characters that you can kind of just like include on your team, and they'll always be able to provide something. They have a lot of tools. Again, AoE green card. They have the cover nullification, Indestructible. They have easy access to key restore with their switch mechanic. So I think this character is probably going to age pretty well because of all the good mechanics they have. But we will see as we move forward. Right now, I feel pretty confident. What are they at? 6 here? Yeah, 6 seems like a decent spot for them. A lot of people acting like this character completely fell off a cliff, which I don't think is true. So, Goku and Bardock at number 6. Let's move on to number 5. All right, number 5, we have the Universal Spirit Bomb GT Goku. I think this guy has gained a lot of value recently just because blue is a really bad color right now. I think blue is probably the worst color in the game. I think it's blue and yellow. I would say I give yellow the slight advantage over blue right now. So, hopefully, either during this Saiyan Saga celebration or as we move into the anniversary even, we can get a pretty solid blue character, because blue is actually in a bad spot, which is funny because purple was in a bad spot and now blue is in a bad spot. I feel like both those colors have historically been the colors that this game has buffed the most. So to see them both at like a struggling stage here is kind of interesting. But this guy, not only is he a really good character to have when you're fighting against Super 17 every single match, but he actually does a lot of good intangible things, which again, we've talked about at length before, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but the Solar Flare is really strong. The straight up bulk that this character has is really good, even if not against Super 17. He's even able to tank pretty well against like Ultra Gohan, because he does have type neutrality for the first few seconds when he switches in. He has a really strong finishing ability to remove the enemy's vanish with his main ability when they're the last man standing, and then he also has the lock-in ultimate when they have 2 characters left. What else? We have the buff removal as well, and then in combination with characters like Super 17 and even like Beast, if you want to run this guy on like a Sun Family team, the sub-count manipulation can really help, and then also those characters can remove enemy buffs. So even if you're fighting a character that has like I don't know, let's say you're fighting like Ultra Golden Frieza who uses his ultimate on like your Super 17, you can switch into the Goku, and even if Goku's endurance gets procced, he won't die because Super 17 removed the buffs on them, which is pretty valuable, because that Super 17 plus this Goku is a pretty good combo, and that's what I actually used to get God ranked this season, next to Golden Frieza. Overall, really good character. This guy actually kind of feels similar to MVP Blue 17 last year did, where this is not going to be the main go-to carry unit on your team. It's going to be character 1, character 2, and then like this guy's either going to be character 3 or character 2 on your team, right? And by character 2 and character 3, I mean this guy's not going to be the best character on your team. He's going to be the second best character on your team, or he's going to be the third best character on your team, but that's his role, right? He's not going to be carrying your team at all, but he's going to be helping significantly as a character that can eat hits, provide utility, and overall just be a really good like backbone of your team, as opposed to being the character that's like carrying your team. You know what I'm talking about? So I think that's a really good role for him, and it makes him a pretty good flexible option on a lot of these teams. Even we talk about Sun Family when this guy dropped, and he wasn't even used on Sun Family, but I feel like you could make a very solid case that this guy could actually fit better on Sun Family now as opposed to Goku and Bardock. So Ultra Spirit Bomb Goku is very good. I think he'll actually continue to age really well, as characters that are actually able to take hits are very rare, straight up. Like usually when you're talking about a character that can tank well, it's not really tanking, but characters like Ultra UI Goku or Ultra Gohan with their gauges, or maybe even Super Baby 2 with his gauge, like they're not tanking, they're just disrupting the opponent's combos. This guy actually is tanking, and he's doing it pretty well. So we'll see how well he continues to age. I think we'll continue to get characters that do even more damage and power creep what we currently have, but we'll see how long he continues to hold on for. Pretty good character. Let's move on to the top 5 now. Or sorry, top 4. All right, number 4 is Ultra UI Goku. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to many people. I don't think there's much of an argument here. The top 4 are well, maybe not the order, but at least the characters that are in my top 4, I don't really think you can argue against this. Like, it's going to be UI Goku, it's going to be Frieza, it's going to be Ultra Gohan, it's going to be Super 17. We know this. There's not much room for difference here. I mean, yeah, it's going to depend on your region. It's going to depend on stars. It's going to depend on equipment. It's going to depend on teams. I get that, but at the end of the day, if you have a different set of 4 characters in your top 4 than what I have here, you're probably wrong. And I don't really say that often. I don't see how any other 4. I don't see how any character can be better than any of these 4 characters right now. There's nothing. Like, I'm looking at like who are you gonna put in this top 4 over what I have? There's gonna be one person in the comment that's like Beast Gohan. No, no way. GT Spirit Bomb Goku, probably not. I don't think so. I do really like him a lot, and I think he brings a lot to the table that a lot of other characters can't bring to the table right now. But he's not outperforming any of these 4 units right now. So I'm pretty comfortable with these 4 characters. The reason why I have UI Goku at 4 is just simply because he's not as broken as the other 3. That's really all there is to it. I think if Frieza did not have, like, okay, so let's just say it like this. If Frieza did not have the comeback mechanic, and they sort of built him around being a stronger character without having like a revive or a death mechanic like that, I can maybe see this guy being even higher than this. Maybe he would go back up to being in the top 3 potentially, because he would be a very, very strong character to use against Frieza. What happens when you use this guy against Frieza right now, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the Frieza spot, is you catch Frieza with this guy, and you're like, okay, yes, like we're in a good spot here. And the Frieza player, what they should probably do is they should probably just force this guy to use the lock-in, make him waste the lock-in, and then this guy hits Frieza with like the ultimate, Frieza dies, and Frieza's comeback mechanic hits this guy for 2/3 of his health. Right, so you're basically back to square one, and in a lot of cases, Frieza actually comes out on top in that trade-off. Frieza ends up with more health than UI Goku does, and you end up wasting UI Goku's lock-in. I mean, I guess the counterpoint you could make to that is the Frieza player then is forced to use his comeback mechanic, but if I'm the Frieza player, I'm taking that all day. If I'm able to get this guy low enough, because this is not a character where you wanted to be remaining at low health for a long time, but if it wasn't for that mechanic that Frieza had, with him being purple, with him being not the tankiest character of all time, I would maybe consider putting this guy a little bit higher on the list, but as it stands right now, I don't think he's like the end-all be-all counter to Frieza. There really isn't one of those in the game right now. I would say probably the best counter to Frieza is Super Baby 2, but even he's not really doing much to him. This guy, the overall right now in terms of his value, though, I think is very, very high. Super 17 is a problem, but that's like the same. That's the case for every character. Like, I mean, no one is really faring well against Super 17 besides Spirit Bomb, which is why he's so high on my list here. This guy, I mean, it just feels like this is one of those characters that's really not going to age until we get like significant power creep. I don't know. The dodge gauge plus the green card generation plus the sub count, it's just like it actually is just too much still, I think. That's one of the reasons why he was such a ridiculous partner with Goku and Bardock. I feel like that combo started to fall off a little bit just because it's not as punishing to get hit by a combo with Goku and Bardock as it used to be. But this guy can fare really well against Frieza, like we talked about. Not as well as maybe we were thinking he was going to. But one thing people don't really talk about as much with this guy is how much of a counter he is to Ultra Gohan. Like, you catch Ultra Gohan with this guy, and there's a really good chance you can just straight up kill him in a lot of instances. If you have a decent hand of blast cards, remember, if you use your lock-in with this character, you can pop the main ability and then hit them with the ultimate or Rising Rush. Like, it chains in. So the Gohan player is in trouble if he gets touched by this UI Goku. Now, again, it's going to depend on if you have a lot of blasts in your hand or not. It's going to depend on what the health of the Gohan is when you activate the lock-in mechanic or not. So there's a few uncontrollable factors here for the UI player, but he's a really good tool against 2 of the 3 best units in the game. So that is a pretty good factor here, and I think, honestly, maybe with the exception of Frieza, I feel like this guy might age the best out of them, just because we know how stupid this dodge gauge is. But I feel pretty comfortable having UI Goku at 4. I probably wouldn't put him higher than this, but I also probably wouldn't put him lower than this. I'm kind of leaning towards you can't really move him up or down. Like, I'm kind of thinking 4 is the correct spot for this character. And I don't really think there's a quote-unquote correct spot for any character most of the time, but this is one of those times where I actually do feel there is a correct spot, which is number 4. So I'm going to leave him at number 4, and we'll move on to the top 3 next. All right, so at number 3, we have Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. I think prior to Ultra Golden Frieza coming out, I would actually make the argument, and I think I actually did talk about this in my prior video, which was when this guy first released. I think you probably could have put this guy or Super 17 at number 1 when this guy dropped. I think taking a look at this Gohan compared to Super 17, this is kind of a similar situation with Golden Frieza and Super 17, but I'll talk about my thoughts on them when we move on to the number 2 spot. This Gohan, to me, is a more complete character. He has more defensive options. He has endurance. He's just a more well-rounded character than Super 17 is and was. Super 17 is a more offensive unit for sure. I think he's more positioned for this meta in particular. But it can sort of go either way when this guy first dropped. Do you want to go with Gohan, who's like a better jack of all trades character, or do you want to go with Super 17, who's like, I'm just going to press yellow card until you die character? And so I think I had them 1 and 2 respectively on that tier list. This one, I think I'm a bit more comfortable putting Super 17 ahead of Gohan, and the main reason why is because of Frieza. And it's not just because of Frieza himself. It's Frieza and Super 17 as a partnership. I think, and my God Rank Grind video is me using Super 17 and Golden Frieza together because I think it's the best partnership in the game by far right now. There's not really a lot that Gohan can do to disrupt that, right? You're using Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and I fought a lot of people using like the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan on Powerful Opponent setup, where you have like a super, roided out Super 17 on like a Mega Zenkai buff setup. And it's just very tough for the Gohan player to really do anything in that scenario. Like if Gohan ends up activating Golden Frieza's comeback mechanic, like your Gohan is crippled for the rest of the fight. If he gets touched by Super 17 at all for the rest of the fight, you instantly lose pretty much. And a lot of I'll talk about this when we get into the next 2 spots here, but the partnership of Golden Frieza and Super 17 means it's very hard to be able to tank anything. Golden Frieza and Super 17, like you just don't, you never stop comboing. And with Super 17 in particular, a lot of times you specifically are only drawing blast cards. So Gohan's gauge becomes less valuable. We have, cover changes. No one on the team is going to have a blast cover change that this character's usually ran on. I mean, sure, you can use him next to like Beast, but when you're talking about like the tippy top of PvP with only the best characters, like it's tough to run honestly, it is. It's as stupid as it sounds. It is kind of tough to run Beast Gohan. He just gets obliterated. I think there's a very clear cutoff here in terms of tiers. I was going to talk about this at the end of the video, but I think I'll just mention this now. If I was going to do characters that are split up by tiers, I think I'd have 4 tiers here. So tier 4, I would have number 10 and number 9 on my list, Purple Cell and LF Jiren in tier 4. Tier 3, I think I'd have Baby, Beast, Goku and Bardock, and GT Spirit Bomb on tier 3. So that'd be ranks number 8 through 5 on tier 3. Tier 2, I'd actually only have one character. I'd have UI Goku by himself on tier 2. I think UI Goku is clearly better than the slots 5 through 10 characters, but he's not as good as the top 3. And then tier 1 would just be the 3 characters here. Ultra Gohan, Super 17, and Golden Frieza would be in the top 3 here. But Gohan just is not positioned well to face the other top 2 characters, whereas I feel the same can't be said for the other 2. Right, Super 17 and Golden Frieza, I think, are in a better spot right now than Gohan is. Again, regardless of whether or not Gohan is just straight up the better character kit-wise. Because again, like I mentioned at the beginning, that's why I always talk about this. This list is not talking about which characters are straight up better in a vacuum scenario. It's who's better in the current meta. And so I think Gohan in the current meta right now is not as impactful as Golden Frieza or Super 17. So as good as he is, it's possible he does, eventually come out on top in terms of his competition with his other 2 units. But I think Super 17 and Golden Frieza right now are a bit better than Gohan is. So that's the reason why he's number 3. But obviously, really insane character. I think they always, for some reason, give Gohan the most annoying mechanics. Like, this is one of the most annoying characters they've ever released, bar none. AoE green card, counter, blue card, counter, unique gauge. Like, come on, it's a nightmare to fight against. So number 3 is going to be Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. Let's move on to number 2. I'll kind of talk about number 2 and number 1 at the same time. In my prior, I think it's 2 lists that I made, I think I did have number 1 and number 2 at shared spots. I think there is a big enough discrepancy between number 1 and number 2 where I feel comfortable splitting them up, but it is still very close between Super 17 and Golden Frieza. So I'll probably end up talking about both at the same time here. All right, so I have Super 17 at number 2 here, which means that Golden Frieza is going to be number 1. We'll just quickly, briefly talk about Super 17 here. You guys know how this character works. Just like probably one of the most ridiculous offensive units we've ever seen in this game. Like this guy kind of reminds me a little bit of OG Vegito Blue, a little bit. And when I say OG Vegito Blue, I mean the blue one on release during the 2nd anniversary. There wasn't really much you could have done versus him, and this is kind of how it feels like with Super 17, right? We have very few characters that have access to blast cover changes. He's not only doing a lot offensively, but he's doing a lot of utility debuff-y stuff as well, right? He increases allies, or not allies, he increases enemy sub counts when they switch. He is increasing their arts cost. He is also, he has like the MVP 17 effect where he removes the enemy debuff or the enemy buff effects when they Rising Rush or Ultimate and stuff like that, so you can switch to a character that has endurance, like Ultra Spirit Bomb Goku, and he won't have his endurance nullified by Rising Rush or Ultimate effects. He obviously has the ridiculous effect, which I'm sure most people hate at this point, but I actually don't think is... I don't want to say I don't dislike it, but I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be, which is the strike and blue card lock on tap attack and quick attacks. I can definitely understand the frustration with it. I see how powerful it is, and it can be very annoying sometimes, depending on... Like, if you have a full hand of strike cards, a lot of times you can't even play the game against this guy. And even if you don't have strike cards, they gave this guy such a punishing mechanic versus blast effects that it just makes it really annoying to fight against this guy. But obviously, he has that. He has the green card, which basically means you lose the fight if you blast this character and he has a green card. So there's a lot of annoying things about this character for sure. So it's not just the fact that he has a seemingly endless supply of blast cards with cover nullification up at all times, but he has that. He has the cover change effect where he gains an ultimate when he cover changes against you, so you want to always be aware of that as well. And I guess I'll kind of mention why I have him at number 2 as opposed to number 1. That's just simply due to the fact that I think Golden Frieza, again, is in a similar position as Gohan was in the prior list, which is that Golden Frieza feels like a more complete character than this guy does because of his comeback mechanic and because it's literally just a better revive. I'm actually going to exit out of this, and we'll move on to Golden Frieza here, and I'll sort of talk about them in the same segment. But Golden Frieza, I have him at number 1. Again, I don't think there's like some massive Grand Canyon difference between them. If you are somebody that thinks that Super 17 should be at number 1 and Golden Frieza could be at number 2, I'm okay with that. To me, I don't think I'd have Gohan above Golden Frieza or Super 17 in any instance right now, just because I don't think he is as impactful as either of these two characters are in the current meta environment. Obviously, it could change down the line, but we'll see. But I think Golden Frieza, like, that comeback mechanic is just so unfair. It's just like here is a scenario, right? So you're doing a ton of damage with Frieza. Like, Frieza uses his green card, and it's one of those things. It kind of feels almost like tag 17 and 18 when 17 would use a green card back in the day, and you just like, all right, I'm gonna put my phone down and I'm just gonna watch what happens. Like, there's nothing you can do. He screams and then just starts beating the hell out of you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, he just does so much damage. So he's doing that. He starts out the fight with double card draw speed, which is very uncommon. You look at characters right now, like every major character pretty much, and you look at how do they gain double card draw speed. There are very few characters that gain double card draw speed without having some kind of condition needing to be fulfilled. Golden Frieza starts the fight off with double card draw speed and like insane key recovery, ridiculous damage. Like, this guy is actually crazy. Like, he really is. Once this guy gets going with a green card, which he can force draw multiple times just from being touched, getting his vanish back with his, like, this guy is a more, what's the best way? He feels like Beast Gohan, the red transforming Beast Gohan, but just like a modern version of him, like an ultra version of Beast Gohan, kind of, with the ridiculous amount of vanish removal, or not vanish removal, vanish restoration that he has. But the comeback mechanic is just so stupid. I mean, you could be comboing somebody's team for like 70 cards in a row with this character, or 70 combos in a row with this character. Super 17 can very easily come in and like two-shot this guy. And then what happens is Frieza will revive with his comeback mechanic, and then he'll smack Super 17 for 80% of his health. And then all of a sudden, Super 17, who's like this ridiculous unit, is all of a sudden at a disadvantage against this Frieza, because this Frieza then is going to revive with half of his health back. So I actually do think I would put Frieza above Super 17 here. But one thing I do also want to mention here is the partnership that Frieza has with Super 17. So the team that I ran for God Rank Grind this season, I used, basically, it was Frieza on GT. It was Frieza and Leader. No, sorry, it wasn't Frieza. It was I had a weird setup, but I think it was the best setup for Frieza that you can make on it. This was not, like, this is far from Golden Frieza's best setup. Obviously, you could do some ridiculous stuff with him on LOE, but overall, I don't think LOE is a good team at all right now, which is why I didn't use it for God Rank. But Golden Frieza, even without being on a perfect setup for himself, again, this is a far from ideal setup for Golden Frieza. I had him not on leader slot on GT. I had Spirit Bomb Goku in lead because I think I benched full power Jiren to get a Zenkai buff for Frieza, and then I used Super 17 and then a bunch of other benches. Like, I think I used the purple GT Goku for an HP buff because he gives 22%, so I felt like it was worth trading off one of the ultra ability slots for that. And what happens with that setup is you basically start the fight with GT Goku. Remember, GT Goku needs to switch in twice to get his full damage, so you always leave with GT Goku. And then I would start a combo somehow. I'd figure it out, either with GT Goku or Super 17. And you want to start the combo with Super 17. And what typically happens, because of how long Super 17 is able to combo for a lot of the time, he will probably at some point end up drawing a green card. And with Super 17, Super 17's green card is defensive, which means you can't really use it or get it out of your hand with Super 17. So what I would do a lot of time is I would combo with Super 17 for most of the time, and then I would switch into Frieza to make use of the green card and continue the combo. And a lot of times the combo would go on for so long that you could sort of use Golden Frieza's insane green card as a way to bridge back into Super 17. And you would have these combos going on for like actually 30 counts. The opponent wouldn't be able to do anything. And what would happen is they would basically have to be forced to use like one of their revives or whatever. Which is another reason why Frieza's comeback mechanic is so insane, because it's just like, you don't want to activate it, but it forces one of your characters to become crippled for the rest of the fight, pretty much. It's ridiculous. And then you have no key left, and so he can freely tackle you. And then you basically remove 2 of your vanishes, and then you can get rushed. Like, it's this character, I think he impacts the game from too many angles, and he's doing too many things. I don't know. Like, don't forget about the cost increase on the Blast Arts cards as well, which is I don't want to say always an issue, but it can be an issue for like Gohan. Super 17, funnily enough, doesn't really care as much about that, because when he fills up his unique age once, he removes all those debuffs. He doesn't really care about the cost increase as much as like Gohan does. But that's another thing that Gohan has to worry about. Even like UI Goku. If UI Goku switches into Frieza, uses a blast card, a lot of times that's all they can do because the cost is so high. But this guy's really insane. I think, again, if you want to have Super 17 at number 1 and this Frieza at 2, I can understand it. But I think this Frieza is a bit more of a complete character than Super 17. And I would feel more comfortable with having this guy, because I do feel that he does impact the game more. I use both in the same team. Far from a perfect setup for Golden Frieza. Golden Frieza can look way better on an LOE team that has a lot of Zenkai buffs, a lot better equipment for him. And I feel like they kind of, like, video for that will probably go up either tomorrow or the day after, but they kind of impacted the game the same on that setup, because they work together so well, right? The definition of like a good partnership isn't just like, okay, one of the characters is just going to completely feed into this other character, and then the other character is going to carry 90% of the fight. I think the mark of a good partnership in this game is when you have both characters that are performing about equally as good, and they're both contributing to the same, they're both contributing equally as well to the outcome of the fight. And that's kind of what I felt with Golden Frieza and Super 17 on the team together. And then GT Goku is there just to have a fallback when you're fighting enemy Super 17s. So, and also the endurance and stuff is really, really helpful. So that's going to be my list here. Again, we'll just recap quickly. I have Purple Cell at 10, LF Zenkai Jiren at 9, Super Baby 2 at 8, Beast Gohan at 7, Goku and Bardock at 6, GT Spirit Bomb Goku at 5, Ultra UI Saiyan Goku at number 4, Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan at number 3, LF Super 17 at 2, and then Ultra Golden Frieza at number 1. Let me know what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.